A longtime Marvel sidekick finally gets the spotlight. Interesting potential new casting for Thunderbolt Ross. A review of the new horror movie Smile. And a conversation about our favorite classic horror films. All today. Welcome to the madness. Hello, everyone. Hello, Morgan.
Hello, the machine.
And
I thought I
welcome.
was the Morgan. I thought
I
that was
know.
what we do.
When I have to respond like that when you say it first, but when I say
That's
it first,
true.
I can just say Morgan.
I shouldn't have said the machine then, should I?
You
It's all gone a bit weird.
You just messed it all up. Okay.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So when
do
I say it
apologise.
first, you should just say hello, machine. But when you say the machine, then I can say the Morgan.
Well,
We
now
haven't
we
quite
know.
worked it out yet.
Now we know for the future.
It's fine,
Hello.
it's fine. Hi.
How are
Hello,
we?
everyone. Hello, Morgan. The Morgan. All of the things.
All of the things. How are
Yes.
we? Are we excited about all that? Jeannine was laughing during the intro. It was because I was doing an impression of the person from Smile.
Yeah,
And just
it was pretty creepy.
smiling creepily at everybody looking straight into the camera. I wasn't actually doing it quite to the same degree.
Yeah,
but
you were doing it earlier, and it was pretty freaky.
It should be. It was supposed to be.
Yes.
Whenever anybody smiles like they do in Smile, it's freaky and creepy and will haunt you for days, which is kind of the purpose of the movie Smile, and also kind of what happens to everybody who goes seeing it. It is certainly an element of what we're going to be talking about on today's show. We are, of course, as Jeannine said, carrying the spooky season theme going ahead, talking some particularly favourite old horror movies today, I think, Ginny, which is something we obviously like on It's a Wonderful Podcast and all things us.
Yes, we love horror, we love spooky season. So yeah, I hope we can do more kind of fun celebrations of things within the horror sphere all month long.
Of course, and of course we will be doing exactly that. Well, I think it's probably time for me to ask the famous question. Is it at this point a famous question? 18 episodes into the show,
yeah,
is it a famous question?
Yes, I think so.
So, Jeannine,
a lot is out, Morgan. We have a lot of fun things to talk about today, including a review of said movie, Smile.
Well, should we begin this week's episode by talking about Smile then? Because it was the kind of big movie release, or at least big worldwide release of this past weekend, because, you know, my annoyance at different release dates for the year's big horror movies in particular is very frustrating for me.
Because I would love to talk Barbarian with you, but that has not been released yet.
No, there's been all these reviews that we've been putting up on the YouTube channel recently, 90% of which have just been you, simply because I haven't been able to watch those movies yet.
You don't even have a foreseeable release date for Pearl, so that's just like really depressing.
It is.
So yeah, you're missing out on some awesome horror, and I want to pick your brain and talk to you about it, but you're not seeing it yet. So this is one movie you were able to see, so we can review that together.
Certainly. Smile. Yes. Okay. I mean, you're kind of better at opening a review than I am. So you open the review and I'll come in with what's going on in the movie.
Okay. So Smile from first-time director Parker Finn, starring a Nepo baby, Sosie Bacon, daughter of Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick, Kyle Gallner, Jesse T. Williams, or Jesse T. Usher, sorry. And yeah, a brand new horror movie, new director, with a lot of very similar kind of aspects about it.
Did you feel the movie was tropey then? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying it was very easily, they weren't really breaking any new ground with it. So while I feel like it was a very well-made film for a first-time director, it looked great, the performances were good, um, it wasn't we've seen a lot of horror this year that has been doing something different, doing something new, putting, flipping tropes on their head, kind of playing within those tropes and doing kind of unexpected things with them.
Yeah.
Um, but this film didn't really want to try to do anything like that. They kind of were just sticking with their story, sticking to kind of things that we've seen before. Like I could literally name off the top of my head like four other movies that feel very similar to this.
I mean
Um,
that comes from a stylistic point of view as well, though, doesn't it? From,
yes.
I suppose, the director. And when we're talking about first time directors, I suppose first time directors, once in a very rare occasion, a first time director will come in, someone like, Robert Eggers, and just do something completely unique in a
Yeah.
style that's unlike what pretty
You've
much
seen
everybody
before.
else is doing
Yeah.
in that, realm of movies that they may be making movies in. What we get with Smile is, I think, quite maybe a textbook director, in the sense that here are all the things how to direct a movie. Okay, we'll do that then.
Yeah, and he
We'll
did it
go and do
well.
that. He
And I think
did.
he executed it well. So I did find the movie enjoyable. I did find it kind of tense and suspenseful. I feel like there were a little bit of try hard kind of moments, like after kind of the fifth or sixth like weird slow camera pan or camera flip or
Yeah.
upside down shot. It was a little kind of overdone and it felt like it was just trying too hard to be unnerving and put you off kilter. The first couple times I was like, okay, this is definitely kind of building a bit of tension, giving this kind of weird voyeuristic quality. I'm liking this, but then it just kind of became like now you're just doing it just to do it because you think it's doing something, but now it's a little bit overkill, like you're trying a little too hard.
The strength of Smile for me is in its thematic story. I find it very interesting, of the idea of a smiling, otherworldly entity
Yeah,
that feeds on the
on the trauma.
trauma of
Yeah,
people's traumatic experiences, and particularly preys on those who have witnessed trauma, whose mind is just heavily affected by that. I think
yeah,
it plays a lot with the delusions that our mind can tell ourselves. I think
yeah,
it plays a lot with the idea of sometimes not being able to trust your own mind.
yeah,
And it certainly plays a hell of a lot with, this kind of manifestation of trauma, and the pattern you see, the mystery element to Smile, and that thematic element, I thought were really, really strong. And
yes.
I really like that sort of stuff. It's a very, very dark, grim kind of movie at its core. It feels thematically like a 70s horror movie to me, because
Yeah,
it's just
I
so
definitely got that vibe as well.
miserably grim at its core.
Yeah.
Um, but you can't. But you really appreciate it for that, because I think the story is very, very well told. It's well put out, and very, very interesting to look past the surface of, and delve deep into those themes of it, because I think that they're fascinating to kind of get into, and the performances convey those. The performances in the movie are very, very strong.
Yes.
I think for me, where I'm not going to say it falls apart, because I certainly enjoyed watching the movie, is that it almost could have done with being slower, treating the tension as quieter. And the tense, I found it an offensively loud movie.
Okay.
When it wanted to scare you, it literally screamed at your face, made
Okay.
some ridiculously loud noise, and like rang an alarm bell. It was so loud when it wanted to scare you. Every scare in this movie was startling,
Yeah.
not actually scary, which was a
Okay. I think
shame.
because I liked like the moment that scared me the most was that very kind of quiet scare of when she's at the fridge and she kind of turns and
Yes,
she sees the image
yeah. And
of
notice
that
that
girl.
one
Yeah.
didn't make a ridiculously loud
No, it was very
noise.
quiet. And then the rest were very much like you said, very kind of loud, um,
They were, and you can see the thing is, you can
startling
see the
jump
jump
scares.
scare. You can see the vast majority of jump scares in this movie. And look, okay, it's not absolutely rammed full of jump scares. It's not a complete horrendous jump scare fest where you're just like,
No,
what am
and
I
I think
even
they did use
bothering
them.
watching this movie for?
And I
Nothing
think
like
yeah,
that.
and I think they did use the jump scares in ways that fit the plot and not
Of
just to kind of
course.
and not just to throw you off, you know?
Certainly. No,
They were
absolutely they
all
did.
plot-based jump scares, which I appreciated over like, "Oh, a cat just pops out from nowhere," or something, you
Yeah,
know? Like yeah.
absolutely they did. I I just think the story was more intelligent than the execution of the story,
Okay.
in terms of the fact that the scares were fairly easy to spot jump scares most of the time. You're like, oh, I wonder what's coming up in a minute. Oh,
Yeah.
what a surprise, a big loud noise and a smile.
Yeah.
Ah, shocker. You know? And I'm sat there in the cinema going, yep, that's gonna happen. And yes, it does. And I'm not somebody who does that. But I could
Yeah, you're
tell
never
by the
somebody who
way the
looks ahead.
movie
Yeah.
was being presented to me that I knew when the scares were coming. I
Yeah.
knew when I say the vast majority of the scares were coming. And this movie, the fact that it is, like I said, a quite, pleasantly intelligent story dealing with manifestation of trauma
Yeah.
and childhood trauma and things like that. Very, very clever concepts that it deals with really, really well. Why not traumatize your audience rather than startle your audience? Why not have your audience sat there for an hour and 50 minutes of this movie, not knowing when the hell they're going to finally be able to scream?
Yeah, and then it would have been this interactive kind of thing with what's happening to the characters in the movie. Because I
Yeah.
like that, I don't know if this is too much of a spoiler, so if,
Oh,
if you don't want
mild
you know,
spoilers,
mild
perhaps.
spoiler. I liked that the entity was just kind of the idea of wanting to spread trauma as opposed to like
Yeah.
a little ghost girl out for revenge or
Yeah,
something like that,
it was a
as
completely
opposed to some
otherworldly
kind.
entity.
Yeah, it's not any kind of creature, but it's an
No.
entity that's just, hell bent on spreading trauma.
It's like it
Um,
follows with being, an entity that's hell bent on stopping people having fun
yeah,
times.
so definitely one of the comparisons that I was thinking of when I saw this movie.
Very much
There's
so.
stuff
Yeah.
like The Happening, The Ring definitely gave me kind of vibes
Oh
of that as
yeah,
well.
a little bit of the ring
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
So yes, I liked that that's kind of what was kind of pushing this thing to kind of continue moving forward and torturing people. So had they kind of thrown elements that were going to bring us into that trauma and tension, then it would have kind of been this united kind of viewing experience where we were feeling just as much trauma as
Yes,
the people in
exactly.
the movie. And then it's like this entity is winning on all fronts because now we
Exactly.
we're in the trauma as well.
We're sat
um
there so on edge, and
yeah.
I was on edge when the movie wanted me to be on edge, but I was relieved when the jump scare happened. And it can be the great thing with jump scares. There's some phenomenal jump scares in horror history, of course there is, but it works for certain types of horror movies, and I don't think jump scares work for kind of deeply thematic mystery horror movies that this actually was. And I didn't
Yeah.
think it would. I didn't really know much about this movie going in at all. I did not think it was going to be this kind of mystery movie. Um, again, I suppose in many ways, in that it feels a little bit like a 70s movie,
Yeah.
where your protagonist is trying to find out what the hell's supernatural force is kind of going on.
Yes.
And we're never quite sure, but it's somehow linked to, their past, which is exactly what's going on. Jump scares work in slasher movies for the most part. Jump scares don't work in those movies. You need a boiling pot tension. In
Yeah.
those movies, you need a real quiet intensity that
And you want
the
it to
movie
feel
doesn't have.
Yes, and you want it to feel a bit maddening because you're seeing somebody have this descent into madness. And so you want to feel that, you want to sit in that. And I think had they kind of given us those opportunities a little bit more as a viewer, I think it could have definitely made for a more rewarding kind of watching experience. But I mean, Sosie Bacon does a great job because I mean, we see her
She
as kind of
does.
this clean cut professional at the start, and then
Absolutely,
as
she
she kind of
does.
gets more and more mad and people aren't really believing her, and she's kind of sinking into this insanity and craziness. It's very believable, and it's very kind of stressful just because you're like, why won't anyone believe her? But obviously, who's gonna believe,
Yeah, well,
these
exactly.
kind of crazy things happening? And so
That's
it's
the
then
whole
that
point
other
of this
kind of
pattern.
frustration as when you watch movies like that, you're just frustrated because you're seeing everything that's happening with her and nobody's believing her, and so now she's just looking like a crazy person, and more things happen that make her look more and more crazy, and you
Yeah,
know yeah, so she definitely did a good job of playing descent into madness.
absolutely. I mean, I really felt the just the nervousness from her, the real panic
Yeah.
from her performance. I thought was really well done. And let's call it what it is. I do think Smile has one of the creepiest visuals in years in a horror movie. That's just pure out of context creepy. I mean, you've seen all this marketing go about for it, where people turn up at sports events and just market the movie Smile by just smiling straight into the camera and just staring.
Yes, it's terrifying.
That's what I mean. Out of context, that visual I think will live on.
Yes, and I think it's kind of also smartly uh playing with trauma in terms of you don't really show your trauma to people, you put a
Yeah,
smile on and hide
yeah,
it,
absolutely.
and move on with your life. So in putting this kind of creepy, forced smile on people's faces as it's kind of doing its, killing,
Yeah,
um, it's like you putting a smile, that band-aid of a facade of everything being okay over the trauma, and it's just like a very, unsettling, kind of interpretation of that, I think. So I
yeah,
thought that was kind of a cool
absolutely.
thing.
I mean, one more thing, I suppose I just will mention as we kind of wrap this first review up, I
Yeah.
suppose, um, is just the fact that there's certain scenes, and again, I won't give spoilers or anything like that, where it seemed like they were using practical effects, and if they weren't using practical effects, it was really impressively done.
Yeah, it looked really good.
But in the fact that it looked so tangible, it looked like you could touch some of this real nasty stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
Because let's call it what it is. It's quite a gory movie
Yes.
at times. Um, but some of the practical effects were really quite good, particularly towards the end. I like the kind of, um, should we say, when our smiling demon is at their most demonic.
Yeah.
Should we go for that statement? I really liked
Yes.
the kind of aesthetic of that. I mean, at times it came off a little bit goofy, a
I mean,
touch.
almost like, it reminded me of, It Chapter 2, the scene at the old lady's house. That
Yeah,
kind of it gave that kind of energy
yeah,
without giving
but
too much away.
it did actually, yeah. But there was a scene in that I think where it opens it opens up does it open up its own mouth?
Oh,
And I
yes.
really like
Mhm.
that. I really
Yeah.
like that
Yeah,
visual.
there
I
were
think
some
it's
very cool, unsettling visuals in this movie for sure.
it's a good
Um,
movie. It's a good
yes.
movie. I just
Yes.
wished it had been more quietly intense rather than offensively loud.
Yeah. I
which
agree.
is kind of all I can say
Yeah.
about Smile.
And overall, I think good
Smile,
performances.
everyone.
I
Go and
liked
see it.
yes. I liked Kyle Gallner in this movie. It just made me sad he wasn't in Scream 5 more because he was good in this movie. And then just I don't know what it is, like people like Jai Courtney and Jesse T. Usher, they're like really good in TV, but then you put them in movies and they're just not that good of actors. It's weird. Jesse T. Usher is just very just he was just very
Some
kind
people
of
work in different
he just didn't
mediums, Janine.
I don't know. He his line delivery was just very kind of first time actor like, you know? Uh
I
so
mean, I
those
don't think I
moments
felt that necessarily, but
well no,
I
like in the
understand.
beginning I think he was okay, but then in the scene when she's kind of going crazy and he's like trying to talk to her and she kind of confesses to
Yeah,
him like and tries to admit to
yeah.
him, his delivery is very much like what's going on? Why are you doing this? Like it just felt very kind of
Okay,
amateurish. Yes,
okay.
but I mean he's great on The Boys. Uh and so I'm like I've seen him be a good actor, but this is just very kind of it was very weird and kind of pulled me out a little bit just to say that. But I did really like Kyle Gallner and I really did like Sosie Bacon. They did a great job
Yes.
in this movie. Um and yeah, I really enjoyed Smile. I wish it was, I think I maybe we've just been spoiled with a lot of kind of originality in horror this year. So
Quite possibly.
I was kind of hoping for an original kind of twist on something we've seen before. But I mean, I think the originality comes in the aspect of what this entity is and what
Yeah,
its
it
mission
does.
is,
It
as
does.
opposed to those other films. So I like that it had a unique kind of look at something like that. Um, and that's kind of what it had going for it to make it like stand out a little bit from those other very similarly plotted movies. So yeah, overall enjoyed Smile. Like I said, like you said, I think it could have benefited from some more quiet scares and more that would have built the tension better. But overall, great performances, great kind of fun horror movie. If for the kind of crazy visuals and everything going on. So yeah, a good solid watch for spooky season.
Yes. General applause for Smile. Yay, we
Yay.
like it. Okay. Do you know what we don't like, Janine? Do you know what we don't like? And I'd like, well, do you know what actually we do like that people don't like,
Yes.
if you know what I mean?
Yes.
Can I just say how happy I am to see the entire population of the world hate on the movie Blonde? I'm sorry, but I don't. I'm not usually like this, Janine. Do I usually have
No, you were
visible
not very
disdain for any movie?
you are not very petty usually. You're not very gloaty usually, but
No, I'm
today
not.
and in this situation.
I am quite petty, but I'm not. I don't gloat, and I certainly am very, very rarely one to actively just almost petition against a movie.
Yeah.
I'm literally telling everybody I can find, everybody that speaks to me about movies, about how you should just not be watching this movie and just what it does to sully Marilyn's legacy, even
I don't even think you
more
said
than
what
some people.
I don't even think you outright said
Blonde, I
what you were
said
talking
blonde.
about. Okay,
I did, I
I
said
don't I
blonde, I
think I
definitely
must have
said blonde.
missed that.
That's what I'm talking about
I just
anyway.
got caught up with Petty Morgan, I guess.
But from what I can see anyway, and I suppose it's not. I imagine there is people that probably like this movie, but from what I've seen, and maybe it's just because I'm in old Hollywood Twitter, everybody's just hating on it, and it's so fun to just retweet all the positivity about Marilyn and all the don't watch this painfully miserable movie showing okay, some real aspects, but plenty of fictionalized aspects of
Yeah.
Marilyn's life just
And
to
I
paint her as an image. If we speak about images of trauma in Smile, you're just painting Marilyn Monroe as a being of trauma, and have
yes.
some respect for the woman's legacy.
Yeah, like she didn't want to be this sexualized thing. And this director just seems very much like
I've never
somebody who
come. Do I
somebody who
know?
just
Do I
doesn't
know
like
him?
women because I mean he's quoted as saying things like um this movie is an NC-17 look at Marilyn. Who wouldn't want to see that? Like
Precisely. I
these
wouldn't,
are things
and
he's
nor would
saying.
anybody with any
Yeah.
sort of shred of respect. I'm sorry, I'm getting angry, but it
No.
has really infuriated me, and even more so now that it's come out and the actual facts behind, the real details of the movie is now there for everybody to see.
Yeah, and I think they felt like they could just bank off of the excuse. Well, it's not a it's a fictional take. It's not, we're not trying to say that any of this is real, and I think that's kind of the blanket they are putting over themselves to try to protect them from any kind of wrongdoing in this depiction.
I think the
Um
mass public aren't going to realize that.
Yeah, but no, but even people who do are fully aware of that fact. They still think it's incredibly disgusting and
Yeah,
unnecessary and totally shitting on Marilyn's legacy because this is depicting all of the things that um she didn't want to be, and she didn't really want to be projected on her or be a portrayal of. So, yeah,
I
it's
was.
number 1 right now because everyone is kind of watching it to see and then the opinion is like mostly not good.
I
So
know we spoke a little bit about it when news kind of first came out about why it was going to be so um
controversial.
controversial, I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah, is the right word. And I just remember finding out why then and just being like, oh my god, this is horrific
Yeah.
and should in no way be supported. I got a message when I woke up this morning as we're recording this, from a friend from work asking me if I'd watched Blonde, and I said, no, I've got a ridiculous amount against that movie.
Yeah.
Please don't watch it. And he'd watched it, but he was saying like, this guy told me he loves Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and was just really sad by this movie and
Yeah.
just like, you know. I want to. His wife loves Marilyn Monroe. He's actively told his wife, please don't watch this movie,
Wow.
um, because you know you, you want to remember people as they wanted to be remembered,
Yes.
especially when they're good people, as Marilyn Monroe was, and human people, not images of pain and sexuality. This kind of stuff could be done with plenty of other people
Yeah.
in and around old Hollywood. You think of the people likes of Judy Garland. Now,
Yeah.
admittedly, I never watched that. Was it Renee Zellweger?
Renee Zellweger, yeah.
Judy
Yeah, I
Garland
watched.
movie,
Yeah.
so I don't know exactly how that treated Judy Garland, but I would like to think any Judy Garland biopic treats her with respect as a human that, yes, went through traumatic experiences, went through plenty of hardships, but comes out celebrating her, not exploiting her, which
Yes.
appears to be very much what
Was the purpose of
Blonde
this.
does. And
Yes.
exactly, and was actually the intention behind it.
Yes, and like the only positive thing people can say about it is that it looks great. The recapturing of certain scenes is really well done. Cinematography is great. It looks beautiful.
Which means
Ana De
nothing when
Armas
you
is giving a
are.
great performance, but
Sure, I've got
the
nothing against Ana
content,
De Armas. I'll just say that I've got nothing against. She's doing what she was told to do as an
yes,
actor.
yes,
Nothing
and then
against Ana De
yes,
Armas.
and like you hear talk about like as someone who's not American to play this kind of American icon, um, she would have never gotten that opportunity otherwise. And that's kind of what made her want to take the role. So, but to kind of see what this movie was depicting and how they were depicting her, I have to kind of wonder why she would, what other reason would make her
Yeah,
want to say yes to that?
I suppose if I'm taking it out of my kind of personal feelings and out of context a little bit, it's probably a good acting spectacle for Ana de Armas because she's able to convey a lot of pain and hardship, and that's always favorable in an acting sense, isn't it, when you're able to showcase, look at all this,
What you can do,
what you
having
can
to
do.
having to, change her accent and that,
Exactly,
you know, and
exactly,
all.
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah,
It's
okay.
probably
I can see
great
that
for her from
as
that
just a
point
good
of view.
showcase of her acting ability. Okay.
However, don't watch the movie. Don't tell people to watch the movie. Actively join me in boycotting the movie and hating the movie. And I'm sorry, because this will be the only time you ever see me this passionately against a movie.
Yeah, because
I
like even
do
if it's a
not
movie you don't
act like
care for,
this.
you aren't telling people not to watch it. But in this case,
But I'm not having, you know, I know this comes from my love of old Hollywood and things like this, but I am not going to stand for somebody who I've always said whenever we've spoken about Marilyn on the main show, just remember she's way more than just an image. She's a fantastic actor. She's
yeah,
a charitable human. She was pained, she was troubled, but she wanted to be remembered a certain way. And this is just doing everything to not respect her wishes, to not respect her
yeah,
life, to not respect her the positivity that she brought. This is
yes,
doing nothing but exploiting her image as a troubled, pained
over
sex
sexualized.
symbol.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with being a sex symbol. Nothing wrong with being a sex symbol. But for a movie to come out, a fictionalized biopic to come out, exploiting that side of it,
yeah.
you wouldn't expect this from a Mae West biopic,
No,
would you? If you were to do a Mae West biopic, I'm sure it would be full of confident sexuality. Well, where's that? Because
yeah,
Marilyn was
because I mean,
confident in her sexuality.
yeah, and like I'm hearing that like the depictions of some of the sexual aspects are abuse related, so that's not really great. Also, just kind of this infantilizing of her, you know,
Yeah,
showing her call all of her male partners daddy. I've heard in reviews. Um,
it's just it's
yeah,
very very bad taste. It's very very bad
yeah,
taste. It is the most vomit inducing movie I can think of at the moment. And I'm
yeah,
sorry, I'm getting very very um passionately annoyed, which is very unusual for me, but it's kind of all splurting out in one
yeah,
moment here. But I'm glad that old Hollywood Twitter is actively going around saying, "Hey, you don't want to watch Blonde, do you? Know you want to watch Some Like It Hot and 7 Year Itch. That's what you want to watch. Come on, let's come and watch this.
yeah,
Celebrate rather than be sad, and be sad for reasons that are sometimes fictional,
yeah,
which is the most egregious thing about it. Like, if it was actually just dealing with true events, wouldn't really be an issue. Yes, it'd be a bit like I'd be questioning, oh, why have you literally just focused on the bad? Like, do a bit of, positivity. But it's the fact there's elements of it that are fictionalized.
yeah.
Rant over, rant over. I've finished.
Fair rant, fair boycotting. I would agree. I've seen enough kind of people talk about scenes in the movie and things to not need to watch it. Scenes of them making her look incredibly stupid and like I said, infantilizing her and um, depicting not just her as a sexual kind of figure, but in very abusive ways as well. So yeah, don't really need to see that.
No, certainly not. Let's go and
And I'm
watch
glad several
Gentlemen
people,
Prefer
yeah,
Blonde.
yes, and I'm glad several people feel the same. So, yeah, we did get some news in the MCU camp
We
of
certainly did.
entertainment.
Yes, we certainly did.
Yes,
Let's change the topic of the subject matter and the
yes,
attitude
yes.
straight away. Or quickly, I should say. Yes, MCU news. We have got some more MCU news. We can't get away from MCU
No.
news, can we? What's this then?
So apparently, the Armor Wars show is now going to be an Armor Wars movie. So, as I kind of teased at the beginning of the show, Don Cheadle's War Machine is going to get a spotlight kind of role. So, long
Seems
time
so.
MCU sidekick getting his own movie, and people still can't seem to want to separate him from the white man star. Same thing they've been doing with Anthony Mackie's Captain America, constantly trying to throw out these rumors that Steve Rogers is coming back and all of these things. They're now kind of pushing, instead of just talking about, wow, Don Cheadle, great actor, getting
Right.
to spotlight a cool black character. Um,
I mean,
instead it's about instead the focus is on from people like Grace Randolph and that Soups guy. Um,
oh,
just
massive,
to name a
massive
few.
surprise.
Yes. Oh, maybe Robert Downey Jr. is going to come back and be the
No,
AI in his suit.
no, he isn't.
Even and even if he did do that, okay, that's cool. But let's focus on the fact that we're getting this sidekick character, a cool black character, a great actor getting to have a spotlight in the MCU. And all of the one of the biggest arguments in terms of the casting thing with Little Mermaid and all of that is, even from black people who don't agree with the casting because they feel like it's, why don't we create our own characters? Why don't we highlight our own characters?
Yeah,
Why are they just giving us the leftovers? There are some black people who do feel that way, and some white people who add that to their list of kind of crazy arguments. Why would you want the leftover characters? Why would you just want to change a character instead of just highlighting your own characters or creating new black characters? Well, here we are getting to highlight a black character, and you're still tacking on the biggest news about that is about the white guy who he was a sidekick to. So
yes.
that's been kind of a frustrating in seeing the rollout of this news, because the same thing happened with Anthony Mackie when they were talking about him being the new Captain America. So very frustrating rollout to this news. But if you look at it and focus on the great part of it, I'm really excited that this is happening. Some people might have the attitude that, okay, well, maybe the show wasn't good enough and didn't have enough for a show, and so they made it a movie. So I mean, I don't know how true that is.
I would prefer to look at it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to look at it in the sense that no, he deserves the big screen treatment
Yeah,
in what
exactly.
is really, you know, War Machine's movie.
Yeah.
He's going to be the absolute lead of this movie. My only issue with this is the fact that Don Cheadle will be 85 at the time that this movie is released. And no, he won't. But he's not a young man, Don Cheadle.
No, and I mean his character already has like some,
Several
issues with their
severe
legs.
injuries.
Yes, and some spinal injuries, and yeah, he is a bit up there. But I think he could probably do it just for the fact that like he's gonna be in a CGI suit for most of everything.
I mean, that's true. Yeah,
And Robert Downey Jr., I think he first played Iron Man when he was in his 40s. So
yeah, I mean, you forget really, don't you?
yes.
That
And now I just feel really even worse for Terrence Howard, because it was a whole money
no.
dispute
I
that
know.
had him not come back. Only
Terrence
for it
Howard
to
have been
now,
loving this.
had he just, hung in there, taken his little, sidekick pay, he could have been starring in his own movie right now and been making the big bucks.
No foresight from Terrence Howard.
No.
For
No vein. No vein.
16 years down the line, or something like that, or however long it's going to be. 18 years even. When his Armor Wars? 24?
24, I think, yeah.
So 16 years later, having foresight.
He could have finally got his
Terrence
due.
Howard.
Yeah.
Silly Terrence Howard. But no, look, I don't know really anything about what's going to happen with Armor Wars other than the fact that it's kind of War Machine's thing, and it's probably going to be quite shooty focused.
Yes.
But then again, that's kind of, Rhodey is a military officer, isn't he? So you kind of you imagine that is, but it's going to be metal clad warriors going against
Yes.
metal-clad warriors by the looks of it. So
Yes, and, if it's in terms of Armor Wars and Stark Tech kinda getting out there, um, are we
yeah,
gonna see appearances from White Vision? Are we gonna see appearances from
possibly.
Ironheart and things like that? So,
Well,
definitely
exactly,
curious to see
exactly.
who could come in terms of what this story is talking about.
Even though all the children who can't realize that people have actually died in a
Yeah,
certain cinematic universe,
are we gonna
just
get
let
our
them die. Let them
Yeah.
die. They've died. I'm sorry. This is what happens. This is why people struggle to deal with death in the
Yes.
real world, Janine, I think. And
Because
this
are
is
these movies
sadness.
just bring them back to us in some ways? Yeah, like,
Exactly.
I think it would be really cool if Tony was his AI, like, but I don't want that to be the focus of what this movie could be, So, are we gonna get Sharon, Carter coming back and do some meddling and dealing, in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Zemo.
yes.
You
So
know,
I'm really curious to
where's
see.
Zemo been? He's not gonna be in this Thunderbolts thing. Is he gonna be in this Thunderbolts thing?
I don't know. Well, that's a great segue into our next little MCU topic here,
It
Morgan.
is
You're just on
actually.
it. You're just
It
on it today.
is.
Yeah, so I'm really
That was an
excited.
accident.
Yes. So yeah, speaking of the Thunderbolts, with the passing of William Hurt, I think they did want to carry on stories with that character. So they were looking at some recasting in the rumors. The rumors are saying that they're looking at Harrison Ford for some potential uh Thunderbolt Ross casting. Because
Again,
you
I
would think the Thunderbolts are based off of kind of him, right? So like
well
his
they are.
team. So it's just,
Where is he?
yeah,
Y-
exactly.
you kind of you almost need you do kind of need him, or at least I mean I don't know how they're gonna do it. They might do it as a because it's going to be, is it, what's her face? Julia Louis Dreyfus, Valentina,
Yeah.
whatever her face
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
Um, maybe she,
Whatever
I
face.
don't know her full name, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, maybe she's just like a big fan of Thunderbolt Ross and is like wants to remember his legacy. If they are even going to kill off Thunderbolt Ross, we don't know.
No. So yeah, it's just this rumor talks of them really wanting to have Harrison Ford and that, that potentially he's on board. I've heard rumors about how this was something that they wanted to announce at D23, but Kathleen Kennedy wanted the focus to purely be on Indiana Jones, so she was like, "No way."
Oh,
Um, but who knows? I don't know how true this is. This is just kind of what the streets are saying. But
I did see that
Harrison
they may
Ford does
be
not seem like the type who would want to do something like a
not
MCU.
not
You
at
know, like
all. I
I
did
was
see,
shocked when a Robert Redford joined the MCU, and he only did it
yeah.
at the request of like grandkids and things. So
Yeah,
it
yeah, what's
it
this
wasn't like
superhero picture?
this is a complex character I really need to play. It's not like Helen Mirren wanting to be part of the Fast and Furious franchise and really being
No,
excited to be a part of it.
no,
Um, Harrison Ford doesn't seem like he would want to be a part of a multi-contract kind of franchise again
no, not at
because
all.
yeah, the
Not
only kind of
at all.
franchise he ever expressed any love for was Indiana Jones. Like that's a character he's always loved to play. Um so yeah, seeing someone like him join the MCU, would it be cool? Yes, but it would also be very shocking because this just does not seem like something he would, grumpy old Harrison Ford would be down for. But
I would
that's the word on the street. So
almost not like it. I mean, I know you say it would be cool, and I don't think I'd be able to look past the fact that I would be able to tell this would be something that Harrison Ford would not really want to be doing. And if he was to show up in this, I would just be like, oh, why, why
my
is he
vote
doing? Go
my
and
vote was
just
always yeah.
lie down somewhere, Harrison. You've earned your way, you
Yes.
know. And
Crack that
again,
whip and then go take a nap and you're good.
again, I don't even like that Indiana Jones 5's happening. I don't like it. I just
I mean, they showed us some footage and it looks pretty great. And
the
the and
fact is,
how emotional Harrison Ford got
yes,
has me optimistic. James Mangold is a great director. I mean,
yes.
I can't think of anything of his that I didn't care for.
And this is fair
So,
enough. And this is
you know,
absolutely fair
it's
enough. Also, I'll I'll use this point again because at this point is actually valid this time. Harrison Ford will be 85 years old by the time Thunderbolts comes out. Look, I know I used the same joke for Don Cheadle, but the fact is Harrison Ford is not just actually old, but visibly old. And like just he shouldn't be starting in movie franchises now. It's just a bad
But I
decision.
mean, then you probably wouldn't appreciate my pick for casting, because he's probably older,
Well,
if not just as old. My vote would just be bring Sam Elliott back, bring the
I
mustache
mean,
back. He played the character
now,
before. Just do that. Just bring him
however,
back.
I'm not massively against that, because if there's one thing they've been doing, it's bringing old cast members back.
Exactly. So it would be
So
this
why
kind of
not have
meta.
Sam Elliott
It
do
would
it?
be this meta casting. It would still work, and he
Why
played the
not
character
even?
before. Just do
Why
it.
not even do it in the sense that William Hurt's Thunderbolt Ross has actually passed away, and they go wishy
Oh my gosh,
multiverse,
jump.
pull
Let's
Sam
pull.
Elliott out.
I love that.
This would actually at least make sense. And I know I could use the exact same argument. Sam Elliott will be 85 years old at the time this comes out. But however,
But somehow that
he
just
has
seems
actually
a little bit
played Thunderbolt
sweeter.
Ross. And if is perhaps this is just the last time you'll ever see Thunderbolt Ross. Perhaps that's what this will be. So I think he could probably do it as a one-off, and therefore I think probably Harrison Ford could do it as a one-off.
Yeah.
By all means, could do it as a one-off. I did read that they were looking at Harrison Ford at the very beginning for Thunderbolt Ross. And I just think he was very much against doing that at that point in his life. So they went for William Hurt, who's been, great as Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
But your adoration of Sam Elliott, Jeannine, I think would even in his incredibly old years that he is now. I mean, he's got to be mid-70s.
Yeah, but
He's got to be mid-70s.
Still in love with Sam Elliott. I'm sorry.
Not as Thunderbolt Ross, though. I mean, Sam Elliott as Thunderbolt Ross in Ang Lee's Hug is the most harsh-looking individual. I used to be terrified of Sam Elliott.
He was born in 1944.
Wow! 1940, 78.
See, so not 85.
He's 78. Might as well get Clint Eastwood to do it.
Oh, no.
Oh, for God's sake.
Okay, well, let's see how old is Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford's not 70. He might be, actually. I bet he is. I bet
Harrison... 2 years older than Sam
Harrison Ford's 80 years old.
42.
Harrison Ford is 80 years old.
Sam Elliott is 2 years younger than Harrison Ford, so that seals the pick right there.
I did not realize Harrison Ford was 80. That's ridiculous. What's he doing, Indiana Jones 5 for? Go and rest, you mad man.
Yeah.
Oh my lord. Fair enough. Bring Sam Elliott in.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Bring Sam Elliott in. Why not? People are insane.
Yeah.
Old actors are built differently. I'll just say that.
Mustaches.
I mean, Christopher Lee played Saruman when he was 92, didn't he?
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
Why not? It wasn't like I don't know who else was in movies at ridiculously late age. Harry Dean Stanton. Before Harry Dean Stanton died.
Also in the MCU.
Was he not like 98 or something like that? Ridiculously old.
He was pretty old, yeah.
In that Lucky movie. I want to see how old Harry Dean Stanton was in that now. Anyway, that's not really relevant. But Harrison Ford could do it I think if it's a
Yeah.
one-off, but I do think almost the more universe appropriate thing to do at the moment would be just to
Oh yeah.
wishy pull Sam Elliott out of the
Harry Dean
multiverse.
Stanton was born in 1926.
Yeah, he was definitely like 98 when that movie
Yeah.
came out.
Yes, 91. 91.
91?
When he died. Yeah.
I mean, not
In
98. What
2017.
am I talking about? What are maths? 926. You wouldn't be 98 now if you were born in 1926.
He was 91 when he died. Yeah. But yeah, he was still acting and
But
stuff.
still, he did
Yeah.
that movie then when he was 90.
Yeah. He died in 2017. He did Lucky in 2017.
Yeah.
Or it
He did
came
that
out in
movie.
2017.
He did that
Yeah.
movie when he was 90.
And Harry Dean Stanton also in the MCU. So, nice little full
Is he?
circles. Yeah.
Who is Harry Dean Stanton in the MCU? What?
He's in Avengers, I believe, when the Hulk turns back into Bruce Banner.
He's
the guy.
cleaner, isn't
Yeah,
he?
yes, he gets him some clothes, and I think that's where he gets a little bike from to like get to the battle.
Of course he is. Of course
he's like the janitor guy. Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
He thinks he's like a spaceman or like an alien or something. Yeah.
Wow, I'd forgotten about that. I'd completely forgotten about that.
So it's very relevant. A very you did it again. Very relevant example.
I'm doing these completely by accident today. I must be on form.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes, very much.
Then who's to say that either Harrison Ford or certainly the positively young and spry Sam Elliott, when compared to the other people,
young and spry, 2 years younger, young and spry,
wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, Don Cheadle at this point looks like a 12-year-old compared to these guys. So
don't Kevin Hart, don't Kevin Hart. Poor Don Cheadle. That famous clip where Don Cheadle tells Kevin Hart how old he was, and Kevin Hart's natural reaction is "God damn," and then Don Cheadle's like.
I mean, no. Don Cheadle looks aggressively good for his age, though.
Yes, black don't crack. Black don't crack.
To be fair, so does when you think about older black men in the MCU, Sam Jackson is in his 70s.
Yes. Facts.
Which is just ridiculous. So, and he's got a TV show coming soon, hasn't he? So,
yeah.
No, why not? It doesn't matter what he's old, what he's aged, what he's young. I'm not being ageist. I just wish people would, just settle down at some point in their lives.
Yes. Just relax.
Not settle down, but just like
just
go
relax.
and rest.
Yeah, you've done your part. You've contributed to our entertainment. Now go rest.
You deserve rest.
Yes.
Value some rest, please. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for our What's Up today, Jeannine.
Yes.
No, it's not actually. It's not. We wanted to bring up one more thing, which was there's a little bit of news of a possible or probable. I think it's actually happening. Reboot of American Pie.
Yes.
Which is weird because I really like American Pie.
Yeah, I mean, and it's I don't know if it's going to be this kind of Gen Z version.
Seems like it, doesn't it?
So it's not gonna hit the same beats. It's not going to be dealing with the same kind of things. It's not gonna have the same kind of mentality that those movies had. So I don't know if I really care to see a Gen Z version of American Pie because that's not my generation. But something like Bodies, I had a ton of fun with.
Which
this
I have been able to see, but I haven't actually seen yet. Unfortunately,
yes,
I will see it. I will see it.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's me not seeing it or whether it's an actual thing, but I don't know.
I mean, the stigma around
the
stigma and the difficulty of having sex at that age is not really an obstacle that much anymore. So
there was at that point, and not that I was a teenager at when the first American Pie came out, but I think a lot of the things were still relevant when I watched the movie.
Yeah.
for the first, or when I watched all the movies for the first time, was that there was still a kind of inherent obsession with getting a peek of something somewhere, like that
Yeah, like a
sort
very
of
much
thing.
Porky's kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's admittedly a bit creepy.
Yeah.
Of course it is. But there's this just teenage kind of maybe because there's a little bit of, danger, a little bit of, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, isn't it exciting? Oh, isn't it fun?
Yeah.
Look at all these new things. I'm a little bit obsessed all the time.
Yeah.
That very much comes across in American Pie. I think it is the absolute most. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's the most obsessive of sex comedies.
Yeah.
In terms of just being full of characters that cannot talk about anything other than,
Yeah.
I just don't feel like that's the case with 18, 17, 18-year-olds today.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like they have those kind of similar,
I'm sure
like,
they still
anxieties or
enjoy fun
yeah.
times together,
Yes, but
but
I think and it's much more easier. There's not a huge stigma around, like, or a build up around that
no,
happening as much
no, it
anymore, I don't think.
doesn't seem so. But that's
I think it's all very much casual,
maybe because we just don't see it.
Yeah,
And
because we're
because
not
we're not
there.
that
We're
anymore.
not yes. So, yeah, I can't speak to that, but kind of just what I've seen in other kind of depictions of people this age. They seem very much a lot more free in terms of sexuality
Yeah.
and yeah.
Because
So
the whole, literally, a lot of American Pie is hiding things. Like,
yeah.
oh no, I've done something horrendous. I need to hide it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, but I really need to
An
hide it. People are going to
embarrassment
judge me
around
horrendously. There's
yes,
no
and
embarrassment.
yeah.
There doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be any embarrassment anymore. And because it's such an embarrassing movie,
Yeah.
or a movie that plays on embarrassment so much, and a franchise, really, a movie series that plays on embarrassment so much,
Yeah.
I just think people aren't embarrassed anymore. People,
Yeah.
I just get the impression that the 17, 18-year-olds today are just not really fussed about what people think of them at all. It's like, yes, of course, I stuck my situation into a pie. What harm has it done to you?
Yeah.
It's just like, well, it actually hasn't done any harm to me. Did you enjoy it? Yes, good. And that would be American
That's
Pie
the
in
kind of end of it. Yeah.
2023,
Right.
you know?
Very
So I don't know. I'm a
progressive.
little bit like, I don't know what it's going to be like. I almost just want to not be an American Pie reboot, and if they're
Yeah, I
going
don't
to
think
do
it's
a Gen Z,
necessary.
if they're going to do a Gen Z sex comedy, just do a Gen Z sex comedy.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to be American Pie because those movies did what they needed to do and it existed at a certain time where that
And
stuff
they're
kind of
great.
made sense and they're really funny and fun. So, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
leave
Unless it's going to
American
be
Pie alone. No,
unless it's
it's
going to be
fine.
another legacy sequel to American Pie, which I don't think it is
I don't
going
think.
to
I think
be,
it's going to be a whole new good thing. So,
because we've
yeah,
already
I don't
had
know.
its legacy sequel.
I don't think I don't feel like I'm a little indifferent to it. Like I don't think it needs to happen, but if it does, okay, the other one will always be there. It's fine.
It's very, very true.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. End
Okay.
of the What's Up, Jeannine. It's Let's Talk time. It's old horror time. It's spooky season
Yes.
celebration time again. My
Yes.
sign today says Season of the Witch. Not that we're talking about any witches, I don't think.
No, but
However,
we're well into spooky season now, and so
yes,
we just want to do some fun topics, horror related topics because we love horror. We also love classics here. We do have our show. It's a
certainly.
Wonderful podcast where we give love to classic films that get forgotten or not recognized. So I thought it would be fun to actually talk classic horror films from the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s.
Any from the 20s? Do we have any from the 20s? Any silent horrors that we'll be talking about today? I don't think so.
No. But a great era of
Unfortunately, because there
films
are
unto
great
their own right.
ones.
Yes, yes. So no offense to the 20s at all. But
Certainly not.
but
Some of
yes.
the most famous and most famous. Well, I just said most famous. What am I talking about? Most famous, most famed, most successful, and frankly, biggest movies and movie stars were in the 20s, Jeannine. They're just forgotten about now.
Yeah.
A lot of them, which is unfortunate, but some of them aren't. A lot of them aren't. Well, a lot of them are, but there are a good plenty from the silent era horror movies that we can watch and celebrate. A lot of them European movies, German movies, Danish movies, French movies, things like this. Because it didn't matter, Jeannine, where your movies came from in the silent movie, because movies were a universal
silent.
language.
Yes.
It didn't matter. It doesn't matter now, does it really? You just
Not
put
really.
the subtitles on. I mean, people are
Exactly.
obsessed. People, i.e. Jeannine, are obsessed with putting
Don't
subtitles
shame
on
me
even
for
when
that.
they don't even need to.
Schmodown has
The Schmodown
messed
had
up my
its
brain.
grand finale this weekend,
It
Jeannine.
did.
You don't have to focus on it
I know,
anymore.
it's really sad though.
It is very sad. It is very sad. We might do a bit of a bit more of a Schmodown discussion next week, perhaps.
Yeah, we could do that. Have a mini Machine Mondays.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no, it would be nice to, because it obviously. I mean, I think we spoke about it.
Yeah.
A while ago on the show, anyway, didn't we?
Yeah.
How much it's meant to us. So maybe it would just be a reiteration of that kind of stuff if I spoke about it.
Yes.
But yes, old horror movies. I think we have 3 particular ones each we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
This is from our It's a Wonderful podcast era, so it's focusing on early 70s,
yes.
mostly, as that's how we determine what we talk about on It's a Wonderful podcast. Well, early 70s mostly, because sometimes we go into the mid 70s.
We do, depending on what the movie
very
is.
rare occasion, we've even gone into the late 70s.
Yes.
Certainly never past there. And
No.
we will never go past there, because it would be wrong. It would feel wrong, Jeannine.
Yes.
It would feel.
The only time we get a little modern on the classics show is when we do a deja vu or a retrospective, but we're always focused on the original classic version.
Certainly.
Yes.
But yes, so this is 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that we are mainly focusing on here. We have 3 each. Jeannine, would you like to go first? And what is your first classic horror movie that you would like to celebrate?
Well, this is one I briefly touched on when we did another horror kind of based episode. And it is Wait Until Dark from 1967. We did a whole podcast episode on this movie, and it was a really nice surprise, like seeing Audrey Hepburn in kind of more of a thriller type movie. Seeing Alan Arkin, who I always know is like your kindly grandpa type figure, or your sassy old man, grouchy old man type, to be this really menacing, scary ass villain. Like, he was really scary in this movie. He was brutal. He had his crazy switchblade. Like, he was not afraid to just kill people. Like, he was this kind of really scary killer guy.
He also had these silly disguises.
Yes, to the point. Yeah, he wears these creepy disguises so he can kind of skulk around and manipulate situations. And so he was a great villain. So to see Alan Arkin like that was a really kind of cool surprise. Basically tells the story of this blind woman, and these men invade her house because she has something there that they need or that they want, and they think it'll be easy to kind of, she's blind, but then she kind of has to use her blindness to kind of fight back against these guys. So Alan Arkin is the villain in this film with, some very fun disguises.
I think one of the disguises does actually look like the old glasses and mustache.
Yes, I believe on our episode. So if you haven't listened to our Classic Films podcast, we do something when somebody in our movie has a superb mustache. We indoctrinate them into the Mustache Hall of Fame. Morgan has a whole list of every person he's put up in the Mustache Hall of Fame to recognize fabulous mustaches in classic
Yes.
films. So Alan Arkin had a fake mustache in this movie, and I think there was a bit of a debate on whether we would allow him to be in
Now,
the
let me
Mustache Hall
just
of Fame or
check.
not with a fake mustache.
Well, there has been false mustaches in the Mustache Hall
Yes,
of
yeah.
Fame in the past,
But I
because
think the
there
debate was
are
like,
actually
was this fake one good enough to warrant
yeah, well,
being
there are
being
actually two
accepted?
women in the Mustache Hall of Fame for wearing fake mustaches.
Yes.
Um, Alan Arkin is in fact in the
Okay,
Mustache Hall of
so the
Fame.
the debate was yes, he was allowed in. So yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was just was this fake mustache good enough to be accepted into the Mustache Hall of Fame, and it was.
it
Uh,
certainly was.
so yeah, just a very tense film. Um, of him just kind of stalking her. Is she going to, be able to use her blindness and her kind of better knowledge of her surroundings and her space to get the upper hand on him? So yeah, a movie that built great tension. Just a really nice surprise to see two actors who you've seen them kind of be completely different in things play to something that you've never seen them do before, and really doing a great job at it. And yeah, just a really tense story. um yeah, I really like it as a horror movie, as a thriller.
It's
It was
great.
just a really nice surprise. So
It
Wait
is a
Until
it is a
Dark,
it is a great
1967.
movie, a
Yeah.
unique movie, and a
Hmm.
change of pace movie as well, which
Yes.
is always fun. Yes, we like Wait Until Dark. Go and listen to the episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast talking
Yes.
about it if you want to listen to more of us talking about that particularly great movie. Well, I'll also start with mine from the 60s then, because it's going to be my Vincent Price inclusion,
Of course.
because nobody embodies the spirit of this particular season more than Vincent Price does, because nobody
Yes.
has more fun with horror than Vincent Price
He
does.
does. He's so great.
And Vincent Price is, well, my favourite Vincent Price movie. I don't think many people would say it's Vincent Price's best movie or their favourite of his movies, but it's mine. And it's The Haunted Palace from 1963.
Yes.
Which comes, in the line of Roger Corman directed Edgar Allan Poe adaptations starring Vincent Price. They're all lavishly coloured affairs, incredibly humorously gothic in tone,
Yes.
and just really impressively made for not a lot of money at all. The aesthetic of them are just so beautiful and brilliant, and just they look like paintings
Yes.
sometimes. And there's scenes in the Haunted Palace when you're viewing the castle itself
And it does
from a
involve a painting.
distance. It is a literal painting. It does actually, the story itself does involve a painting. It does. But you get it's based on the case of Charles Dexter Ward. No, it's not. Then is it? It's not. It's I've got it. I've not got it mixed up. The Haunted Palace itself is an Edgar Allan Poe
Yeah.
title. It's based on a Lovecraft story,
Yeah.
which is the case of Charles Dexter Ward. It does still come alongside all the Poe, Corman, Price things. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I actually think it is Vincent Price at his best in a horror movie, because I think it shows him at his most. It allows him to do the most range in a singular performance of his, because he's playing two characters, one of which is supremely confident and evil,
Yeah.
and one of which who is the ancestor of this supremely confident evil person who doesn't want to be taken over by this supremely confident evil person.
Yeah.
but who ends up kind of being, he's vulnerable, he's charming, he's incredibly devious,
Yes.
but he's also what he does best, incredibly mopey. Nobody mopes like Vincent Price. He's the
No.
mopiest
He's great
actor
at it. Yeah.
ever. And he's so good at, I mean, he's at his mopey best in House of Usher. He's absolutely at his mopey best in House of Usher. He's just the most perfect embodiment of depression in a movie. And that movie itself is, you know, one of these real full Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe
Yeah.
adaptations that are incredibly beautiful to watch and incredibly, you know, they come across, they don't come across as serious as they are either, which I
Yeah.
love
And
about
even because, yeah, so even when he's playing these kind of mopey characters, you could still tell he's having a lot of fun with it.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
of course, and you can in this movie. There's it's such a great movie. It's my
Yes,
favorite. It's my
you built this
absolute
movie up
favorite.
to me so hard, and so when I finally saw it, I was like, okay, I see what he's talking about.
I think there has been an episode. I think it was on a Jeannine hasn't seen
Yes,
on the
potentially,
podcast
yeah, I think
feed,
so. Yeah.
talking the Haunted Palace. Just because I love it so much. I think the makeup in it is just wonderful.
Yeah.
It's so blatantly obvious that it's
The
there,
atmosphere is really great as well.
but it's a perfect movie for Halloween. All of
Yeah.
Vincent Price's movies, or the vast majority of them, are perfect movies
I mean,
for
I'm
Halloween. All
partial
of his
to
horror movies.
I'm partial to Theater of Blood, but you know.
Theatre of Blood's great.
It's so fun.
The difference with Theatre of Blood is that it's obviously a contemporary movie. It's a
Yes.
modern movie.
Mhm.
It's actually
But he's
set when it
still
was made.
yes, but it was so silly and fun, just like everything else he does. So,
The
you
Haunted
know,
Palace obviously isn't set when it was made.
no,
It's
it's very
you
much the
know, a
Gothic
19th
era.
century
Yeah.
small New England town
Smoky,
castle.
atmospheric, dark. Yes.
Yeah, portrait
Yeah.
that, you
Book.
know, of this warlock, this ancestral warlock.
Doesn't it
There's
have like the
some
Necronomicon in it? Isn't that what that
yes.
book is? Yeah.
There's that weird demon thing that lives under the cellar,
Yeah.
or like that they kind of feed sacrifices to. It's really
Yes.
weird. It's weird. It's great. I will be watching The Haunted Palace
Yes, I
within the
definitely need to
next few
revisit
weeks.
that one. Yeah.
100%. I love it. Yes.
Yay.
Next.
So my next film is one I actually really love from 1933. It is The
Oh,
Invisible Man.
I know why you love this movie, Janine.
Because I
It's
can
because
always
it's the
use it.
most hilarious movie.
And I can always use Gloria Stewart as a bridge in a 6 Degrees game.
You can. It's
It's great.
very useful.
This movie is very useful in 6 Degrees of Separation.
Soon as you get as soon as you get to anyone from Titanic,
Yeah.
you can get to Claude Rains, which means you can get to anybody from old Hollywood,
Yes, exactly.
which is very
So
useful.
yeah, it's a great bridge both ways. Because there's so many people in Titanic, and then
Yeah.
yes, so a great branching movie, but not just for that. It is completely hilarious. He
It
is a
is.
madman. He's throwing people around, throwing people downstairs, pushing people in the street, riding around bicycles naked. And he's naked the whole time when he's causing all this havoc in the streets. Just some amazing visuals. Technically, the things they had to try to do back then to create the look of the Invisible Man, and have him with like invisible things but still wearing clothes, and all of that looked really good for the time, and using some really smart camera work. Um I loved how they were able to create that in 1933 and
Yeah.
still kind of pull it off really well. Claude Rains is just very maniacal and evil. Like just the way he just gives 0 fucks. He's just going crazy. I love it. It just makes me laugh.
I honestly think The Invisible Man has the best camera effects
Yeah.
in horror history. I do, because for what it did at the time, it is absolutely you know, adjusted for inflation the best.
Yes.
Because camera technology gets so much better, of course, and camera tricks get so much more evolved, but none were done as well with such little technological advancement than they were in The Invisible Man.
Yes. So well done. But yeah, it just follows the story of a man who uses science to make himself invisible, but also in turning himself invisible, it also makes him very much more kind of, like I said, maniacal and sinister than he kind of was before.
He's
He gets kind of
so
consumed
horrible.
by, yes, he gets consumed by the power that he's created for himself. And he's just going crazy, just effing stuff up all in the streets and just going loco, beating people up and yeah, causing havoc. It's just hilarious. Skipping
Let's not,
along the streets and
yeah,
singing little
singing that
ditties.
ridiculous song.
Yes.
What is it that he sings?
I
What's that
don't remember.
stupid song that he
I
sings
don't
when he
remember.
starts
I don't
skipping
remember
up
what it
down the
is. When
street with
he's
his
skipping
just
down the
his
street.
pants on?
Yes.
It is a weird movie. It is a hilarious movie. I think
Yes.
it is a brilliant horror movie. But
Yes. I mean, he's a great character, but, in terms of like horror aesthetic, but that movie is just really funny to me.
it is a funny movie. It is a
Yes.
funny movie. But it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be finding this stuff way over the top that he's doing. Because it's
Yes.
all about his own self-arrogance. Oh,
Yeah.
I can get away with just
Consuming
doing
him.
all this
I can do,
craziness.
yeah. He creates this thing and the power just consumes him and makes him very much, I have so much control. I can do whatever I want. Nothing's going to happen to me. No one can stop me. And just kind of being diseased, but almost by
Yeah.
immense power that he's been able to give himself. So
I mean, let's
I
not
like that part
forget.
of the story it tells as well. But just the fact that he's running
Yeah.
around just causing havoc is really fun.
I mean, the book, which I have read, doesn't have a romance plot in it like the movie does.
Yeah.
There's no Gloria Stewart in the book.
Oh, okay.
It's way more just a series of scenes of him going to various places,
Yeah.
causing chaos and then leaving.
Leaving.
Or stealing something and then leaving. Going to his old friend's house, playing a trick on him, leaving. Until he gets, obviously, until he kills all those people on that train.
Yes.
And gets actually chased down and found out.
Yes.
But it's a crazy, crazy movie. Claude Rains is giving it his
So great.
absolute all.
Yes, he's putting his all into this. Just but then the romance scenes, you do kind of see glimpses of who he used to be and the fact that she can kind of quell this insanity that he has for a few minutes just for him to kind of know it's too late, kind of I've succumbed to this. This is more important than anything.
I mean,
Kind of
that's the thing
energy.
about
Yeah. It's
that is the thing
heartbreaking
about those
in
Universal
parts. Yeah.
monsters, though. Those
They're all
Universal
very kind of
monsters,
heartbreaking.
they're all sadly romantic.
Yeah.
I think that's a real good, strong through line of them. Even Frankenstein's monster. I mean, you don't think of Frankenstein's monster as massively romantic, but in the one scene, he shows some sort of affection towards somebody else. What does the bride do? Scream in his face.
Yeah.
They're very sadly romantic characters. Dracula, he's creepily romantic, sure, but it's what ends up killing him.
Creepily romantic.
The Wolfman's very sadly romantic. Lon Chaney Jr. in that movie.
Yeah.
The Mummy, it's literally,
That.
Imhotep's entire situation
Yeah.
is finding his lost love. It's all about love.
Yeah.
The Universal Monsters movies, even though the Invisible Man book isn't really about romance and love.
But
At
yeah,
all,
I
it is
like
just a
that they
play
added the
on
romance to kind of give
Yeah.
that through line and bring some humanity to this character who,
yes.
up to that point, we've just seen been crazy and violent and
let's not forget as well
horrible.
about the phenomenal supporting cast in The Invisible Man, including the
Yes,
great
Una.
great Una O'Connor.
O'Connor, she's so good. I love her. Great
We
character actress. Yeah.
we think of the great scream queens of horror. Nobody ever mentions Una O'Connor, who actually does have the single best scream in the
Yes, she's great.
entirety of horror history,
She's great.
because her screams come alongside a lot of going, "Oh!"
And like bug eyes, and yeah, she's
and
a great
"Yeah,
character actor.
then," and saying things like that.
Yeah, so that
We
very thick
also must
accent.
mention
Yeah.
that one mustachioed policeman in The
Oh
Invisible Man
yes,
who walks about everywhere fumbling and bumbling and going, "Hello, what's going on
yes.
here then?"
It's very much your stereotypical like old Britishy copper, you know.
I don't know what's going on here. He's invisible. How can he be invisible? That doesn't make any sense. It's
Yes.
ridiculous. They're not even in London. They're nowhere near London. They're nowhere near London.
But you just have him doing this whole bit. Like it's great.
I went on a road trip around the southeast of England. Was it last year?
Mhm.
It must have been last year. It must have been about this time last year, or just slightly early. No, I think it was literally around this time last year, actually. And I could have gone to the village where the Invisible Man's actually set. It's called
Oh
Iping.
wow.
However, there's nothing there. It's like it's not even a place. There's like one street.
Oh my god.
It's not even a place. It's absolutely tiny. And the Invisible Man, this famous, ridiculously famous story, is set in this
That is nothing place.
impossibly obscure village in Sussex.
Okay.
So it's really weird. It's really weird. So I decided not to go because I'd literally be going like 2 hours out of my
Out
way
of your way
down
just to see nothing,
ridiculously
essentially.
horrible country
Yeah.
roads just to see a picture saying, "I'm in Iping. This is where the Invisible Man was prattling around for that entire
running
time."
around naked. Yeah. That's hilarious. But
But
yes,
it's a wonderful movie.
definitely a classic film I have a lot of fun with. And yeah, the tragedy of that character. And of course, I love the romance. I like what you brought up about just all of these kinds of universal monsters having this humanity in terms of having these love stories that humanize
Yeah.
them a little bit. So I love that theme with that, and I got that in this movie. So yeah.
Well, so here's one for you then from my perspective, which is arguably the saddest of Universal monsters, which is Frankenstein's monster, because I want to talk about the Bride of Frankenstein, which for the longest time, Jeannine, I would never admit was the best Universal monster movie, because it wasn't the first movie. You know, it's like
Yes.
it is the second Frankenstein
Yes.
movie. So I was always like, no, the
No, it
first
can't be
one
the
is
best
always
one.
better.
Yes.
I still do think that holds true in terms of, say, The Godfather. I
Yeah.
still think the first Godfather is actually better than the second Godfather. I think it's more focused. That's a discussion for another day.
Yes.
But I would never admit that The Bride of Frankenstein is actually the objectively best Universal monster movie, and it just is so very much.
I have not
Yes.
seen. I've never seen The Bride of Frankenstein.
Well, this is horrendous. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to get all my Universal Monster Movies Funko Pops out for everybody who's watching the show
Yes.
right now. So, well, in fact, they're all there. You can see them. They're all there, actually. I don't need to bring them out. They're all there. If you're watching on YouTube, here's a reason for everybody not watching and just listening to go on and watch on the It's Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel.
Small
Subscribe.
to see, but they can zoom in. They can zoom in.
Oh yeah, you can see this. Can you not see this? I mean, maybe if you can't. Here's Frankenstein's monster.
And he's got the little flower.
He's got a little flower. Here's the Invisible Man, which I just love.
And he's black and white in black and
He's
white.
He's in black and white.
Yeah.
But these are the two we're actually talking about. I've also got Dracula down there as well, as Vincent Price is actually down there, with a little cat.
Yes.
So, but yes, I'll leave these two just here. They can stay there. while I talk about how great The Bride of Frankenstein is, and I think it's a reason, it's a similar reason to what I was talking about with Vincent Price before, is that it actually allows itself to be a bit silly. It
Okay.
tells a genuine, heartfelt story about Frankenstein's monster, you know, coming to terms with trying to be beaten down by the village,
Cool. Yeah.
really trying to find friendship. The old blind man, his scenes with the old blind man are so beautiful. Becoming friends with the old blind man just for the old blind man to get killed. And it's what happens.
Yeah, I think I knew about that. Definitely
It's
gonna be
very, very
something I
sad.
watch this spooky season, but
Please do. It's
yes.
very, very heartfelt. The scenes with Frankenstein's monster are very, very heartfelt. Boris Karloff's better in that movie than he is in Frankenstein. He's able to speak some words. He's like Thor Ragnarok era Hulk
Okay.
in Bride of Frankenstein, whereas he was just silent completely and grunting in 31.
Yeah.
But yeah, so any scenes with Karloff as the monster are just so emotionally told, just emotionally presented and emotionally performed, and you really feel for them. And then every scene with Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Pretorius just trying to create new things are just the most goofy mad
Oh my
scientist
gosh.
thing possible.
Is that
Dr.
where kind of all those
Pretorius,
stereotypes come from? Of like the
yes, they
the
come from
mad
Dr.
scientist and their
Pretorius is
assistant?
the campest man you've ever come across. Dr. Pretorius's one weakness, I think, is gin. He says in the movie, he's like, "Oh, gin, it's my only weakness." And he speaks like that.
Yeah.
He's also the one who announces the birth of the Bride of Frankenstein by saying, "The Bride of Frankenstein," in this
Oh, okay.
ridiculously over
Yes, I think
theatrical
I've
way.
seen that. Yeah.
Ernest Thesiger is delightful in this movie. I have to imagine that Vincent Price watched The Bride of Frankenstein and goes, "When I start doing horror movies, I'm going to be like that
I'm gonna
guy.
invoke that guy.
I'm going to
But
be
yes, I
like
mean,
him."
but I mean, the first film already set up things of this character wanting to grow, wanting to learn, being curious about things, being kind and sympathetic, and trying to understand that concept. Um, so to see him kind of continue to build on that
Yeah,
in
he does.
in this second movie,
And it's
I think
obviously
it's great.
incredibly sad when the bride eventually does show up. And as soon as Karloff looks at her, she just goes, "Ah!" And then he's just back down
Oh,
to
it's
being
all sad.
worthless
Yeah.
again. Off back down to feeling worthless. That's
Yeah.
kind of his whole situation, isn't he? He's a very, very sad character.
Yeah.
I should say as well that Frankenstein, the book, is distinctly different to Frankenstein, the Universal
Yeah.
movie. They're basically not even the same thing.
Oh, okay.
It's insane how different they are. Both are great. I mean, the book's pretty good as well. Very good, really. But I love the scenes at the scenes at the beginning and the end of Bride of Frankenstein that actually show Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley and Lord Byron sat in that house in Geneva where they wrote where she wrote Frankenstein on that stormy weekend or stormy
Oh.
week
Mhm.
when all these great English writers were together,
Yeah.
and they challenged each other to come up with scary stories. And Mary
Oh,
Shelley,
okay.
18-year-old Mary Shelley, churns out Frankenstein in a week and
Okay. I didn't know
makes
that.
makes that. But so Elsa Lanchester is playing Mary Shelley as well as playing the bride.
Okay.
Even though, I mean, she's barely in it as the bride. The bride is such an iconic figure,
Iconic
but
figure,
she's
yes, that
literally in the
look.
movie for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It's insane, but it's such a good movie. It's such a
Yes,
good movie.
definitely gonna watch it. It's been on my list forever, and I just just never got around to it. But yeah,
Yes. Back on the shelf with you, the monster, we'll call you the
yes.
monster. And back on the shelf with you, you insane, crazy lunatic.
That laugh and then just
What
that.
is what's the one like ridiculous thing he says to people, the Invisible Man? Does he not
Oh
like
yes, he
have some
has
sort of one line that's
one
just like
line that he just says all
silent?
the time. That he just shouts at people all the time.
He does. He's a
Yes,
shouty man. He's a
yes, he
shouty
is. He's
man.
very loud, and the crazy laughter. I love it. So great.
What is your last pick, Janine?
I think you know what my last pick is. 1956's The Bad Seed.
The
Um,
Bad Seed.
yes, I
Wow.
love this movie. And I think it's just more kind of based in nostalgia as well. I do kind of talk about in my youth, my mom kind of just sitting us around and us having like little family movie nights and watching movies together. And this was one of those movies that I actually watched pretty young and one of the first like black and white classic films I remember watching.
Did you
So yeah,
turn
in
into her from the Bad Seed when you watched it
um
young?
maybe no.
That's
Um
not good, Janine. You can't
it was
drown
very
people.
informative. Yes. Uh but yeah, just kind of in going into doing our classic show and becoming a co-host on that, I didn't really have a lot of classics, having been watched. But this was one I remember watching and really enjoying. I really liked the story of it. I like how um they don't, and they're not really gratuitous with the violence of it. They just kind of hint at things and describe things, but it's enough for you to feel the menace of this child. So it's basically like the sweet little girl, and she's very murderous. If she doesn't get her way, if she doesn't like something, if she's jealous of somebody, she has no hesitation in just murdering them. And then just her mother trying to reconcile that and kind of be like, why are you doing this? And her just really not even wanting to admit it to, like, she won't even admit it to her mother that she's doing these things, but her mother knows. And so the fact that she kind of has to figure out where this is coming from, and I think it's a whole familial thing as well, that the mother
Yeah.
realizes it kind of skips a generation, because I think her mother or her father was somebody kind of very much of that violent, murderous nature, skipped her, and now it's in her daughter. And so now she kind of is just terrified of her own child, and this is her baby, so she's very conflicted. So I like that they focus on the aspect of the mother trying to figure this out, and then just this girl, she is played brilliantly, and just very maniacal, very kind of does this great switch of the sweet and bubbly, and then kind of this violent, sinister turn when she needs to. And the way she can kind of just turn back on the sweetness with her little pigtails is just very unnerving.
Yeah,
um
it's where so many tropes were made, I suppose, isn't it? It's an
the
incredibly
killer child
influential
kind of movie.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Patty McCormick, she did an
Yes.
amazing job. And then a great supporting performance by somebody in a movie that we will be talking about on the Classic Films podcast. Her name is, Eileen Heckert.
Yes.
She is a woman who, the little girl has been suspected of killing her son, and she goes there and she's drunk and she's just begging this little girl just to admit that she killed her son and took
Yeah.
his little like bumblebee pin or something.
And it was
And
something completely ridiculous as well,
yeah, and she's
wasn't
like,
it?
I
She
just
just
want it,
wanted.
please. Yeah, like my son is gone. Please just give me the pin. Please just give it back to me. That's all I want. And she tries to lament with this just, you know, just give it to me. Just sympathize with this little girl. And she's just not budging. The little girl's just like, I don't have it. I didn't do anything. And so to have that maddening thing after you've lost your child, Eileen Heckert, I think she actually got an Oscar nomination for this performance
Oh
supporting.
wow, okay.
Yes. So just coming in and giving this kind of drunken monologue, just begging this evil little girl to just, admit what she did and give her that pin back, because that's her son rightfully won it. And yeah, so just a great scene there. And like I said, I just love that they focus on the mother's conflict in how to reconcile this and how to deal with this child that she raised, that's her baby, but to know this, she has this evil in her. And yeah, like I said, they don't outright show any kind of murders or anything, but the way they are able to kind of illustrate it and still you feel the menace of this little girl um through that performance, I think is brilliant. So yeah, just kind of nostalgic in the fact that this was one of the first kind of horror movies I've seen, first classic movies I've seen, and just really brilliantly told and great performances. So I
It's a
really
very,
love.
very good movie. It
Yes, I
is.
really love The Bad Seed.
I enjoyed watching it because I think you suggested it for an episode of the main
Yes.
show before you ever came on the main show.
Yes, because I wanted to flex. I do know a little something about some classics, so you should check out The Bad Seed. It's a horror film. It's killer kid movie, black and
Yeah.
white, great. So yeah, I remember recommending that to you to do on the show, and then when I joined the show, I was like, damn it, I wanted to talk about it.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah.
Well, there you are. You and your fondness for The Bad Seed. It is a great
Yes.
movie. It is a
Yes.
great movie. A very, 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 very evil movie.
Yes. Very
Sweetly
dark.
evil. Sweetly evil. But
Yeah.
really, really sits with you after, like,
Yes, and the ending is not wrapped up as good
No,
as
no,
yeah,
it is
it's a
not.
very sad, upsetting ending as well.
It is.
Yeah.
It's quite a pessimistic movie in many
Yes.
ways.
Yeah.
Certainly one that makes you not trust anybody.
Yeah.
And you'll be terrified of having children. So if you don't want to have children, watch The Bad Seed, and it will
It'll
it
reinforce
will reinforce
those
your
thoughts.
attitude. It
Yeah.
will. Exactly. Well, my last one that I wanted to talk about is another one from the 30s. This is the oldest movie we talked about, because this is 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because I refuse to call it by what it calls
What
itself,
they call it, yes.
which is, Jeannine,
Dr. Jekyll.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Everybody in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931, refers to Dr. Jekyll as Dr. Jekyll. Have you ever in your life heard anybody refer to Dr. Jekyll as Jekyll apart from in this movie? No, you haven't, because I'm fairly certain it only exists in this particular movie, because it certainly doesn't exist when the movie's made 10 years later with Spencer Tracy.
Yes, it's
they call him
very
Jekyll.
Clearly Jekyll. Yes.
They don't call him Jekyll, but they call Friedrich March Jekyll.
Jekyll, that whole movie.
In this movie.
Which we do have an episode on the podcast feed as well.
We do.
So
Yes, there is an episode on this. There's also an episode on the Spencer Tracy version.
Yes.
Which the Spencer Tracy version's great. The 1941 one, it's a very I would say it's probably a high budget, star-studded kind of we've got some monetary backing behind this movie. Let's make it look quite polished.
Yeah.
Let's put a really good Spencer Tracy performance in there. But let's make the entire movie very... Is it Ingrid Bergman in the movie as well?
Let's have Ingrid Bergman doing a
Lana
terrible Cockney accent.
Yes, that's right. It were great in that movie as well. And it is a very good adaptation of Jekyll and Hyde. Again, I've read Jekyll and Hyde. You can blast through Jekyll and Hyde very quickly. It's a very short book. But 1931's Jekyll and Hyde, Ruben Mamoulian directed with Friedrich March and Miriam Hopkins, is just weird. It is a weird movie that is made incredibly creatively. There's just bizarre transitions and editing in this movie. There's focus shots, like in silent movies, and you get the kind of circular, let's focus on this part of the frame shot.
Yeah.
Where it's as though the camera lens has been covered by a bit of paper and you're just looking at a circle. That happens in this movie.
Yes.
There's POV in
shots,
this movie.
Yeah.
There's a phenomenal transition
that transition
sequence.
is really good. I think it's definitely actually even better than the Spencer
miles
Tracy
better.
transition.
It's
Yeah.
way better than Spencer Tracy's transformation. His original first transformation from Jekyll, drinks the potion, turns into Hyde, looking at himself in the mirror, is brilliant. The makeup for Mr. Hyde is fantastic. When Friedrich March is Mr. Hyde, he's like some sort of maniacal animal.
Yeah.
He's not like just a villainous dude.
Yeah.
Like Spencer Tracy kind of is. He's just a bit evil, a bit kind of messed up, a bit ego focused.
Yeah.
You know, or id focused if you're going psychological with it.
Yeah.
The rain has picked up in this part of the
Oh, yeah,
world.
I'm like,
if we
I
can
can-
all hear this.
Yeah.
I can't hear myself think, I'll be honest with you. But Friedrich March's Mr. Hyde is a primal being. He's growling. He's jumping over things.
Yeah.
He goes to like the opera and things like this. And he might as well be climbing on all the walls. He comes across as there's a real,
much like a creature. Yeah, he plays
a very, very
Mr.
creature.
Mr. Hyde as very creature like being. Yeah.
But he obviously plays Jekyll very pleasant, very mild mannered, very kind of someone you want to root for, which is the sad nature of Jekyll and Hyde anyway, isn't it? But I love that movie for its just bizarre creativity.
Yeah.
Because when you think of Universal in the early 30s doing the major horror movies, or most of the major horror movies, you get RKO as well. I think actually Jekyll and Hyde's an RKO movie. I think it's an RKO movie. King Kong is certainly an RKO movie, and that obviously does, that is maddeningly influential in terms of adventure spectacle movies, isn't it? And kind of tense suspense adventure movies. But you think of most mainstream horror in the early 30s, and it is the Universal formula, and it does feel like a formula. Those Universal movies, they follow a pattern. They look similar. They're in different locations, but you can tell a Universal movie. They're very well made. They're very, very well made. They are stricter in terms of the weirdness that they can have in their own filmmaking. And Ruben Mamoulian clearly was able to do whatever the hell he wanted to make Jekyll and Hyde. He was just like, we trust you, you weirdo.
Yeah,
go
for it.
Go and make this Jekyll and Hyde movie.
You weirdo.
we had this silent Jekyll and Hyde with is it not Lionel Barrymore? Is it John Barrymore?
Yeah, I think it's John
Is it the
Barrymore.
father?
Yeah, I think it's John
of the Barrymores? Or is it
Yeah.
actually John Barrymore? It might actually be John Barrymore in the 20s.
I think it's John Barrymore.
But we've got this. We're making this one now. And yeah, just being. I was startled by how much filmmaking uniqueness was in 1931's Jekyll and Hyde when I first watched it. And I always love bringing that up. There is an episode of the main show on that as well. It is a wonderful old horror movie for you to watch this season.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Dr. Jekyll.
Yes. Jeannine.
Yes.
Watch Dr. Jekyll. Watch Bride of Frankenstein. Watch Haunted Palace. Watch Wait Until Dark. Watch
The Invisible
what
Man.
else did you see? The Invisible Man. And watch the Bad Seed as well.
Yes. Some great horror classics. So yeah, not everything has to be from the 70s or later to be a good horror movie. You got some great
Although
stuff.
we like the
back in the day.
70s.
We
We
do.
like the
70s is a
70s
boom.
for horror. It is
But horror
the
did not
best
start.
decade.
Horror did not start in the 70s. So go back.
Horror did
There's some
not start
great
in the
stuff.
70s.
There's some great stuff back then. So
I do admittedly think horror still peaked in the 70s, though.
it did. It definitely did.
It really did. The 70s is absolutely unmatched when it comes to horror. It just is. It
And
still
then it only
is.
went up from there. 80s, 90s. Those were kind of the biggest. I think, we got
It went
some...
up in popularity.
Yes.
Quality-wise,
Yes, I didn't say quality. I just said it went up. It just went up in the
Okay.
amount of horror we were getting in the 80s and
Oh
90s.
dear. Yes, you are right. You are absolutely right. But of course, there's loads of phenomenal old horror movies. Of course,
Yes.
there is.
So please seek them out.
Seek them out, definitely. Well, I think it's time to end this week's episode, Jeannine, with a little bit of fun and games. We have a horror movie quotes game today.
Yes.
We have 5 quotes each. I have taken 70s and 80s horror movies. Jeannine, you have taken 90s and 2000s horror movies.
Yes.
It is simply, what movie did this quote come from? Some are famous quotes, some are less famous quotes. Others are quotes that I just like and I think are weird. And if Jeannine gets one in particular, I'll not only be incredibly impressed, but I might just...
Oh, goodness.
I might just have to insist that this is some sort of watch-along movie because I just find it a ridiculous movie. Anyway, horror movie quotes game. I'm so in spirit of spooky season now. I just want to say that I have really started watching my horror movies,
Yay!
talking about them, watching all those countdown documentary type things.
So good. Such a great
little
time
bits
of
of
year.
analysis and just stuff like that. Or featurettes and things like this, all about things
Yay!
to do with bizarre horror movies. So let's end the show, Jeannine, with some fun and games.
All right, I'm ready
Horror
to
movie
lose.
quotes. Would you like to go first
Always.
in answering? You do
Yes.
always like to go first in answering.
Get the embarrassment over with.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Is from which movie?
Oh.
Bonus point for who says the quote.
Dawn of the Dead?
It is from Dawn of the Dead. Who says the quote?
I don't know.
I will take actor's name. In fact, I'll probably just take the actors' names. Who says the quote? When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
I actually have never seen Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead's a good movie.
I've only seen the remake. I don't know. Is that the one that has Tom Savini? Is it Tom Savini?
Tom Savini is in Dawn of the Dead. He plays a biker who gets his head chopped off.
Yes.
It's said by Ken Foree in Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
Yes. As he's looking down on all the zombles walking around them all. I call them zombles because I like to think that the wombles came back as zombies.
Yes, I like that.
And they were just known as zombles.
Zombles. Okay. All right, Morgan. I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them. We're going to die out here.
Ooh. I know it. I know that. I've heard that. I'm scared to open my eyes. I'm scared to close it. Oh, it's Blair Witch Project, that?
That is correct.
Yes, of course it is.
Thought it would feel a little more vague than that.
Yes. I was trying to do the accent of people and the impression in my own head there. Yes. Here's a nice one for everybody as well. No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
What?
I could do an impression, but it wouldn't give it away.
Oh.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. Sounds like something that they'd say in Smile.
I know. Here, Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh no.
I'm gonna have to take your first answer, Jeannine. It's Hellraiser.
Oh,
No
it's been a minute.
tears, please. It's
It's
a
been a minute.
waste of good suffering.
Ah,
Well, that's probably not how Pinhead talks in the new one, considering Pinhead is a
It's a
woman.
lady.
Which
Whoa,
it doesn't
whoa,
really
whoa.
matter, does
She's a
it?
lady.
Pinhead's Pinhead. Pinhead doesn't have to be a dude. Stop
Gender,
crying, people.
yeah. Ridiculous.
God. As though
All
Doug
right.
Bradley hasn't given his, say just like, yes, I've seen tweets.
Yes.
Doug Bradley's literally tweeted out saying how great. Do you know what? I forget her damn name now. Jamie something is she called? Who
I
plays
don't
the new
remember her name.
Hellraiser? New Pinhead.
I don't remember.
I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. And for some reason, I
Yeah.
think it's only going to come on the US and on Hulu. It better arrive on Disney Plus here, otherwise
Aw,
I'm going to kick off
riot.
with
Well,
somebody.
yeah, I think Hulu is connected with Disney Plus and all that. So
It is.
um,
Well, yes, it is. It is here, certainly. Okay, yes, Hellraiser.
all right. Wah, wah. I've killed a lot of people.
Just simply, I've killed a lot of people. Okay. I've killed a lot of people. Could be anybody. Could be anybody. Could be a war movie. It's not a war movie. It's specifically a horror movie. I've killed a lot of people. I've killed a lot of people. Is it from Scream? Sounds like something from Scream.
I'm going to have to accept your first.
Okay,
answer.
you can be snarky with me.
That is incorrect. It is
Oh.
from American Psycho.
American Psycho.
Yes, at the end when he's on the phone and he calls his lawyer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
American Psycho. Another one of those. Let's all idolize the wrong type of character movies. When people love Patrick Bateman and they really shouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you might get this, and you might not, but I think you'll like where it's from if you don't get it. Look what your brother did to that door.
What? Look what your brother did to that door.
Don't hear it in my accent.
I know.
Look what your brother did to that door. Or the door. Not that it really matters.
No, it doesn't, because that's not going to help me at all.
I just find this is hilarious of a quote.
I have no idea. What? Look what your brother did to that door.
I'll put a context clue of it's a particularly chaotic scene that this is kind of half shouted at in. As in,
and like the more that like that made something like click in my head to sound more familiar.
Look what your brother did to that door. Again, don't hear it in my accent. I could do a far better Pinhead impression than I can an impression of this particular person.
Your brother did to
and if I did an impression of this particular person, you might be inclined to actually guess where this movie.
I mean, is it Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
It is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is the cook who says that.
Yes.
To the hitchhiker about Leatherface.
The best broom beater in the business.
He does. Whacking people with these brooms.
But he wasn't even like just like poking him at her.
Here's a brush.
Yeah, he's basically like throwing her with his brush. Not even like scarily violent.
Thank you for cleaning me, the cook from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's hilarious. All right. I'm going to get some donuts, some Prozac, see if I can't find some crack, and I'll be back when you all find a subject more Saved by the Bellish.
Oh. Oh. I mean, that sounds to me like a an old late 90s, early 2000s teen horror movie to me, Jeannine.
Does it?
I don't know, though. I don't recognise that quote, I'll be honest.
You need to hear it again.
Yes.
I'm going to get some donuts, some Prozac, see if I can't find some crack, and I'll be back when y'all find a subject more Saved by the Bellish.
Who talks about drugs? Someone from I Know What You Did Last Summer, is it? No, I don't think it is, but I'll say that.
That is incorrect.
No.
This is one of the smartest characters ever in a Scream film. In Scream 2. This is Joel the cameraman. When people start dying, he's like, I'm going to get, you guys are talking about all these murders. I'm getting out of here. He was smart. He left town.
Fair enough.
He was like, Gail, your last cameraman got killed. You didn't tell me this. I'm getting out of here. And he leaves town and then comes back.
Fair enough. Yes.
So yes, Joel. Black Joel, cameraman, smartest person ever in the Scream franchise.
I need to, Jeannine, I need to rewatch the Scream sequels.
You do that this spooky season. Promise me.
I definitely need to rewatch the Scream
every time
sequels.
I bring them up, you are always.
I'm like, clueless. I'm absolutely clueless.
You are.
I barely remember anything from them. I often watch the first movie, but I've seen the others one time each, and just
two is a great one too. I really like 2.
I don't register them.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
2 is a solid entry for sure.
I mean, you should know this one. To be fair, Jeannine, you should know this one. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
But doesn't that happen in 2 different movies?
Specifically, the quote is, "We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house."
So that happens in 2 different 70s horror movies, right?
Quote.
I am aware. So that's why I'm like, which one is it? I'm like, are you trying to trick me? And it's like,
I don't think I'm trying to trick. I don't think I'm trying to trick you.
All right. When a Stranger Calls.
It is When a Stranger Calls.
Okay.
It's not Black Christmas.
Yeah, I'm like, if it's Black Christmas, I'm going to be so mad at you.
Even though that exact thing happens in Black Christmas.
Yeah.
That is the When a Stranger Calls quote. Yes.
Yes. All right. I think you'll get this one.
Hopefully. I haven't been keeping score.
I missed one. You've missed 2.
Okay, yes, you missed Hellraiser, yeah.
These are like smart bombs. You point them in the right direction and shit gets real.
Why do I always ask about the movies that I like rather than getting you to ask me about the movies I like? These are like smart bombs. You point them in the direction and what?
And shit gets real.
Oh, I don't know. I've got absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. I really haven't.
It's in reference to a body part.
A body part. I don't know.
Give you a clue. Oh,
I don't know. Can I have a context clue?
I mean,
well, you've given me one. You've given me one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm shaming myself.
Oh, well, to be fair, it was a fairly new movie that you'd seen. So, from Jennifer's Body.
From Jennifer's Body. Okay.
Yeah, she's talking about using her boobs. Boobs are like smart bombs.
Ah, yes,
in the right direction.
Yes, that makes sense. Jennifer's Body, a great movie, but certainly
you've only seen it the one time. Yeah,
I have only seen it the one time.
We did that when we did our different decades of horror, a film from each decade. Yeah.
Jeannine, if you get this one, I will personally give you a horror movie gold star.
Oh, okay.
It takes all kind of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
in what may be the stupidest movie I watched for the first time last year. But
Oh
I
my
absolutely
gosh.
loved it.
Is that the name of it? Is that the name of it?
I think you've got this, haven't you?
I don't remember if this is the name. And I don't think I've seen it. I think I've just seen like it on like kill counts or somebody
Yeah.
talk about it or something.
I would imagine James and Chelsea of the kill count rather like this ridiculous movie.
Is it called Motel Hell?
It is
that what
from
it is?
Motel Hell,
Ah.
horror movie gold star for Jeannine. It's Motel Hell. Please watch Motel Hell this year. Please. It's just, I can't with Motel Hell. I can't tell you anything about it. The way the movie treats its own subject is just ridiculous.
Oh goodness.
Like, you think it sounds like, okay, it's Texas Chainsaw equivalent, you know, there's a bit of like cannibalism going on. But could it be treated any less seriously if it wanted to be?
It's like super goofy.
It's ridiculous. I know, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you.
I've never seen it. I remember hearing the premise and seeing clips of it. So.
It's a wonderful movie. You should watch it, definitely.
All right. Okay, last one. I don't know. You probably won't get this.
Oh, good.
But you two should check out A Mirror sometime. You look like shit run over twice.
It's a good quote. It's a good line. I like that line. I have no idea. No concept at all. Twins? Something about twins. You two should look... You look like what?
Shit run over twice.
Something about ugly twins. Ugly twins? Ugly twins?
Okay, I'll give you 90s...
House of a Thousand Corpses?
90s teen horror energy.
Oh,
had to close out on one of those.
Damn thing, isn't it? Is that I Know What You Did Last Summer?
It is.
Yes.
When they go to see Barry and he's a dick and he tells both of them
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
We
right,
like
Philippi.
It. Okay.
Yes. All right. Good job, Morgan.
Yay.
Nice
I didn't absolutely embarrass myself, I suppose.
No, you did good.
But, well, I mean, Motel Hell, I'm just... All the applause for knowing that's from Motel Hell.
Thank you. It was a very memorable title. And yeah, just like I don't know if I can't remember what I watched, somebody talking about it, kind of talking about the plot, showing clips of that exact line. And
yeah, it's a big it's like an advertisement for their chicken restaurant or whatever it is.
Yes, but
fritter restaurant.
Yes. So yes, I was aware of
the all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters, when it really just means people.
Yeah. Gross. So yeah.
Yay.
Spooky season.
The season continues to be celebrated on Monday Madness. It certainly does. Another great show this week, Jeannine, but this is not the only thing we have on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, nor is it the only thing we have on the podcast feed, is it?
No, we have fun things happening on the channel all the time. We just did a fun watch along of Beetlejuice yesterday. So we will have some spooky season watch alongs, live discussions, fun little videos from us. Morgan loves to share. He's got a spooky season horror movie video collection video.
Yes, that will be starting this week.
I've got some horror reviews on the channel, so check all of that stuff out on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe, do all of the things. But also, you can find this show on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed in podcast form. And other things we have on the podcast feed, we have Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday, where I force Morgan to watch things he hasn't seen. We're keeping that spooky as we talk the Purge franchise of films. Morgan's been avoiding them for years, a little too realistic horror for him, but I'm making him watch them, so we will discuss. So check out our talks on the Purge franchise all month long on Morgan Hasn't Seen podcast every Wednesday, and of course every Friday we've talked about it, the Classic Films podcast. It's a Wonderful Podcast, our flagship show. We love talking old classic movies, and we have some fun spooky stuff happening over there.
Jeannine, it has to be said, we're opening up October with I'd go. It's a retrospective. So we're 3 movies here that we're
Yes.
talking about. It's my favorite episode since the last retrospective, which was the Beauty and the Beast retrospective.
Mm-hmm.
This one we've got on Friday has been taking over our lives for like a week.
Yes, it's been echoing in other aspects
It's just
of our
everything we're
work and our
watching, things we're
lives.
seeing,
Yeah,
just things that are happening. We
can't get away from it.
we can't get away from it in several different ways, and we love it. We love it. I mean, there may be a hint in if I get the movie collection video out, maybe a hint in that.
Yeah,
As to what it is. But
a
it's
really fun
hell
horror
of a fun
retrospective.
episode.
Yes, we have 2 of those planned. So this first week we'll have our first retrospective, talk some fun horror movie classic films in between the month, and then close with another really cool horror retrospective where we talk its classics film and its remakes, any sequels it might have. So yeah, we have some fun stuff for the Classic Films podcast as well. So check out It's a Wonderful Podcast every Friday. Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday, and of course right here, Monday Madness every Monday. Right here.
Perfect. Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Amazon Music, and everywhere else. Subscribe to the podcast feed. Subscribe and ding your notification bells on this YouTube channel as well. It has been scrolling at the bottom of the screen all episode long if you are watching, but links to the Patreon and the donation link in the description if you would like to support us. That way we cannot do what we do without your generous support, and we are so endlessly grateful for it. I mean that sincerely. I know I don't sound sincere a great deal, but I've been sincere in this episode. I was sincere about my distaste for the Blonde movie.
Yes.
And I am sincere about how grateful I am for our wonderful patrons.
Yes.
Certainly. You can also find the show on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. Find me on Twitter at The Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in the because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram at just The Purple Dawn. All your delightfully spooky stuff is where.
You can find me at Jeannine DeBean _ on Twitter, Jeannine DeBean on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, you can find that scrolling below as well. Our Teespring shop. It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. We got some really fun designs over there, so please check it out. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Wonderful. Jeannine, do an impression from someone from one of your favorite horror movies. Could be anybody.
Anybody.
Could be anybody. It doesn't have to be the Invisible Man.
I mean,
at which point you could just go, ooh, hoo, 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 hoo.
3, 2, 1.
Ha ha! Bye!